This is a very historic day because it was on this date in 1963 the Beatles went to Studio 2 at EMI Studios in London.
Okay.
12 hours they were in the studio.
Okay.
They did 3 sessions and they completed 10 songs for their first album.
That is interesting.
Including 13 takes of There's a Place, just as an example. Like, they did a lot of recording that day. Small changes. I think all these bootleg recordings are out there of all these takes.
I think they are.
So they're fascinating. You should go listen to them and see how these songs get worked up, fixed up, and see how their first album, Please Please Me, was recorded primarily on this date. And here's the songs. And it's a long session, but they were used to playing long sessions.
I think a lot of the songs they already knew as well because they used to play them at the Cavern and
that's the only way they could pull off all
Yeah.
the songs. They were just doing what they already did.
in such a short recording session. I mean, in today it would take longer to record one song. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, they did 2 takes of Twist and Shout, and the first take was the one used for the album. And of course, it's very famous for John saying that his voice was worn out by the end of the night.
Yeah.
But if you listen to his recordings, say it like the Hamburg live recordings, you hear them do Twist and Shout, you hear that this is exactly how John sang it.
For sure.
So while you hear how he says that his voice was strained, I go, I don't hear it that much, because actually he sang it with all this power all the time.
And he was 20 years old. I mean, you know, you just have the stamina. And he had the vocal range anyway. And this album, by the way, our good friend Gerard, this is his favorite Beatles album. He's a huge Beatle fan as well.
Yeah.
If you're watching this, Gerard, hats off to you, because this is a great debut album. And I agree, it's fantastic.
Yep. Another historic moment for the Beatles on this date, February 11th, in 1964. The Beatles traveled from New York to Washington, D.C. by train during a blizzard, performed their very first concert ever in the United States for 8,000 fans at the Washington Coliseum. And did approximately a dozen tunes, about a half an hour set. They also had opening acts, Tommy Rowe, the Caravels, and the Chiffons. The Beatles had to stop the show 3 times and turn Ringo Starr's drum kit around and reposition their microphones so they could face a different part of the surrounding audience at each change. And George even had a problem with 2 microphones and said the whole thing was a bit ludicrous.
You actually watch Ron Howard's new film, 8 Days a Week, The Touring Years. They've now colorized it, which I'm very happy about. I think they should colorize all the old black and white films, personally, including A Hard Day's Night. I'm throwing that out there now. It's really interesting to watch it because it looks like it was filmed yesterday. But you see John and Ringo pulling the drums themselves. They had no roadies. I think Mal Evans was the only guy who was their roadie. They had one roadie, Mal Evans. You know, so they're on stage and they're pulling this drum kit, trying to face it the other way. It's amazing to watch the Beatles do this. They had nobody helping them.
Yep.
You know, it's like, wow.
Times have changed.
Yeah.
Did you know on this date in 1965, Ringo Starr married Maureen Cox, his first wife, marrying in London, and John and Cynthia and George Harrison attended, but Paul was still away on vacation in Africa. And Brian Epstein was the best man.
Interesting. Good for Brian.
And they would stay married until 1975. On this date in 1968, the Beatles were again in the recording studio at Studio 3 at EMI Studios in London, recording Hey Bulldog
Great song.
and You Know My Name, Look Up the Number.
You know my name, look up the number. But Hey Bulldog is a fantastic Lennon vocal. You listen to that, you know. You can talk to me, you can talk to me. If you're lonely, you can talk to me. Just a great, great Lennon vocal on that. It's one of my favorite Beatles songs. But anyway, go ahead.
And they even filmed them performing that song.
Yes, they
It was
did.
used for video for promo use. On this date in 1970, John Lennon and the Plastic Ono Band, they taped their performance of Instant Karma for Top of the Pops and BBC TV. And the band consisted of John on electric piano, Klaus
And?
Vormann on bass.
And who is Klaus Vormann again?
He is the artist who did the Revolver album cover,
Yes.
but also a good friend of theirs from the Hamburg days.
That's right.
Alan White was the drummer for the Plastic Ono Band. He would later join Yes and be their drummer for the next 45 years. And Mal Evans played tambourine.
Remember I told you about Mal Evans being their only roadie and best friend? Yeah.
And Yoko Ono was blindfolded, knitting and card holding for the video. Lots of fun on that one. On the same day, John Lennon paid over £1,000 of fines that had been imposed on 96 protesters who'd been arrested while protesting a rugby game in which a team from the apartheid state of South Africa was participating.
This is when apartheid was really happening. See, like, what a guy, you know, like what a great fellow to do that, you know.
And on the same day in the United States, the soundtrack album for The Magic Christian was released and features the song Come and Get It by Badfinger, written by Paul McCartney.
Good song, featured on an anthology album.
On this date in 1988, the original film print of the movie Imagine John Lennon was premiered to Warner Brothers executives in Los Angeles, but they thought it was too long, so it was recut and then finally released later in the year. On this date in 1993, Paul McCartney and his band performed a 1-hour rehearsal for the following night's appearance on Saturday Night Live. And Paul also consents to doing interviews with NBC Nightly News and The Today Show.
Do you know, in 1993, when Paul was on Saturday Night Live, I was only 10 hours away in London, Ontario, and I was really seriously considering going to that taping. Did you know that? But I chose instead to go to Detroit to watch the concert that he performed there. But I should have. Now it's like, oh man, why didn't I go to Saturday Night Live to see him tape that? It's a great performance.
And another historic thing for the Beatles, on this date in 1994, the Beatles got together to begin work on Free as a Bird.
Okay.
And this was at Paul's Mill Studios in England. And after working on the song, Paul, George, Ringo, and Jeff Lynne went to the local pub for a drink. There you go. Fascinating day.
Free as a bird.
All right. Thanks for watching. We'll see you tomorrow.
All right, guys. See ya. Take care.
So my dear friends, come back when you can.